Welcome back to the unofficial Squarespace Entrepreneur Podcast. Today we're talking about Squarespace's newest release, Fluid Engine, their new drag and drop editor. This is arguably the biggest change in the platform since Squarespace 6, when Layout Engine was introduced 10 years ago. And I was actually musing on Layout Engine a few days ago in the Squarespace Entrepreneur Facebook group. And I was thinking about the why behind Layout Engine 10 years ago and the impact that had on the web as a whole. And then the why behind Fluid Engine and, thinking forward into what impact I think this will have on the web over the next decade. So Layout Engine, if if you use Squarespace, you're familiar with it. It's what we've all grown accustomed to. And the biggest benefit of Layout Engine was its responsiveness. You can create a website on desktop and it would look good on every device. And so occasionally there might be something on mobile that you might want to change or you might want to tweak, and that would require some custom code. But for the most part, that responsiveness was a super benefit that at the time was really revolutionary, but has since become the standard and the norm expectation on the web. The other thing that Layout Engine brought about was Squarespace's templates, which have been, I think I'd say from 2014 to 2017, 2018, Squarespace kind of set the trend for the web in terms of default template designs. And so at the beginning of that era, you always knew when you were looking at a Squarespace website, but towards the end of that era, more designers, more platforms, there's a lot more mimicry going on by that point in time. Now we're 4 years into a new era, and so what Fluid Engine allows us to do is it allows us to actually edit that mobile layout and that mobile design. And then it also allows us to get super flexible with the desktop layout and the desktop design. So you're no longer confined to a limited 12 column grid. You have a much more fluid and flexible canvas to work with. Now, the interesting thing I found as well, going back in the past, was that when Layout Engine was released 10 years ago, the word used to describe it then was fluid. And so perhaps keeping with that fluid theme, Squarespace wants to continue to give you that fluid kind of a feel where you can go from one state to the next state and not lose anything. Now, with change, that's always going to be kind of rocky, right? And what I've experienced is that a lot of times when you go from one state to the next state, you got to lose some things, you got to drop some things. And as designers on this platform, you become accustomed to how things work. You develop workarounds for things. If you have clients, which is why you're designing on the platform, you also become a kind of a middleman between someone who would rather perhaps not touch the platform and then the platform itself. And so there's a lot of different nuanced perspectives that I kind of wanted to touch on in this episode. One, because, for example, I'm still the same do-it-yourself Squarespace customer that I was 8 years ago, even though I've built a business that serves designers and caters to people who work on the platform every day. I still relate more to the do-it-yourselfer, because when it comes to web design, I'm not a pro, believe it or not. If I get too many options, if I spend too much time, I'm always unhappy with the result, right? So I'm someone who leans on templates, which is why I started with Squarespace. I rely on templates, which is why I built a business around templates. And so I think from the perspective of a designer, I think the big opportunity with Fluid Engine is much more flexibility with creating your own custom layouts, designs, and templates. You can become way more creative without any of the limitations or the necessity for code. And so, that's the opportunity. At the same time, there's some challenges with that, and there are some challenges with making the switch from something we've become so familiar with to something that is new and different. Another thing I'll mention is that you know a large reason why we use the Squarespace platform is because of those limitations, right? We know that we can go somewhere else and move things all over the place, but a lot of people have been okay with the compromise of like, okay, yeah, sure, I might not be able to drag and drop all willy nilly, but the ease of which I'm able to throw something together, I shouldn't say throw something together, but the ease of which I'm able to put something together makes it worth it, right? Where now with this change, it's like, well, it's, now it's a little bit more comparable with the competition, and there's less of that benefit of having a limitation to inspire your creativity. So again, what does that mean? If you're a person who, you thrive off of limitations in order to express your creativity, or constraints, I should say constraints, if you thrive off of constraints, um, well, there's always going to be some new constraints, right? Um, and some new challenges and problems. So I think one of the downsides of Fluid Engine as it is right now is there's no tablet view, and the mobile view has to be customized for each page, right? So there's no more of that, automatic done for you responsiveness. Now it's a do it yourself responsiveness, but not quite, because you can't do the middle response. You can't do the tablet view. So, that's a challenge right now. Um, I was playing with it this week, moving my website, my personal site over from 7.0 to 7.1, and I found it to be a little bit buggy and a little slow and so on. And so, maybe you want to give it a little bit of time, right? Give it a few months for Squarespace to work out the kinks. As a Circle member, they've been rather transparent in the process and soliciting feedback from the community. I think one thing that I've learned from observing this process is just how valuable the community feedback is, or could be, earlier in the process. So, as it is now, Squarespace typically solicits feedback, before something goes public. And I think it's partly a courtesy to the Circle community. And also for them to kind of stress test things with their super power users. And I think some things you can kind of get around, or get, I think you can get much better result if you get that feedback earlier on in the design process, because uh, you know Circle members are using this thing every day, and they are constantly thinking about, well, how can this thing be better? And so I think starting there is always a good starting point, um, versus coming to them later down the road where there's less impact that their decisions can make on the actual fundamental design of a product. So um, I think that's all I got for this episode. Like I said, or maybe I didn't say it, but I'm gonna have some more videos on my YouTube channel where you can actually see how to use Fluid Engine. I'm going to do some comparisons between Fluid Engine and Classic Editor, but really, one comparison I'm very interested to make is with Wix now and Squarespace's Fluid Engine. Now that they're a bit more comparable, which one is well, I was not going to say which one is what, because we know which one is what, but I think it's fair to do a shootout between the two. So That's all I got for you on this episode. Thank you for tuning in. Again, my name is Omari Harabin. I'm the founder of sqsbthemes.com. Subscribe wherever you are listening or watching this podcast. And if you're not already a member of the Squarespace Entrepreneur Facebook group, go ahead and join. And I'll see you in the next episode. Peace.